Good morning, dear children. In the previous two videos of lesson 4, the cope and the anthem from An Alien Hand for class 7, we have seen how the homeless and jobless character of the story, Sophie, tries to go against the law to get arrested so that he could go to the Blackwell's Island and comfortably spend 3 months of winter in the prison. He played 3 tricks, but all in vain. Now let's see what Sophie's next move. Will he give up his plans to go to the prison, or he will choose some other way? Let's explore the chapter and find out how the story unfolds. Introductory part. Soapy tries his luck twice again, so he's not giving up. He's again trying his luck for 2 more times, but Copes remain indifferent as ever. Soapy is suddenly reminded of his childhood home and mother and resolves to turn over a new leaf. Feeling a hand on his arm, Soapy turns around to see the broad face of a Cope. Okay, let's read further. Then he came to another cope standing in front of a big theatre. He thought of something else to try. In the last part of the chapter, which we saw in the second part, the Soapy came in front of theatre where rich people were moving, and that area was more lively. So when he reaches in front of the theatres, he saw a cope standing in front of a big theatre. Now he is having some plan in his mind. He began to shout as if he had too much to drink. He started behaving like a drunk person. His voice was as loud as he could make it. He was screaming. He danced. He cried out. And the cope turned his back to Soapy and said to a man standing near him, but the cope is not at all bothered by this act of Soapy. He turned his back and the cope started talking to the man standing next to him. It's one of those college boys. He won't hurt anything. We have orders to let them shout. He is telling that he is assuming Soapy as one of the college boys and they are allowed to shout as they won't be hurting anybody else. That is what the cop said. So again he is mistaken by the cop and cop is not taking any action against him. Soapy was quiet. Listening to this, Soapy was again upset. Was no cop going to touch him? He began to think of the island as if it were as far away as a star. He thought the island has become too far away from him. He won't be able to reach that place. He pulled his thin coat around him. The wind was very cold. The cold wind was blowing and Soapy was not enough well dressed to protect himself from cold. He was feeling very cold. That's why he pulled his coat around himself. Then he saw a man in a shop buying a newspaper. At that moment, he saw a man in a shop and he was buying newspaper. The man's umbrella stood beside the door. Soapy stepped inside the shop, took the umbrella and walked slowly away. So at that moment, Soapy had another plan. But by now you must have seen that Soapy is basically a harmless person. He has no intentions to harm anybody or actually to steal anything. Okay, his only intention is to do something so that he could be caught by the cops and could be sent to prison. So what Soapy did, he stepped inside the shop where that man was buying the newspaper and he took the umbrella and walked slowly away. Now let's see what's happened next. The man followed him quickly. Seeing that Soapy walking away with his umbrella, the man quickly followed him. My umbrella, he said. This man asked Soapy for his umbrella. Oh, "Is it?" said Soapy. "Why don't you call a cop?" "I took it." "Your umbrella." "Why don't you call a cop?" "There's one standing at the corner." The Soapy is telling that man that if this is your umbrella, I'm taking it away. Why don't you call a cop? Okay. The man walked more slowly. Soapy did the same. So the man started walking again slowly towards the cop and Soapy followed him. But he had a feeling that he was going to fail again. The cop looked at both the men. Now here, Soapy had a strong feeling that again his plan is going to fail. His plan is not going to work out the way he wants. When the cop saw them approaching, the cop looked at the two men. "I," said the umbrella man, "that is, you know how these things happen. If that's your umbrella, I'm very sorry. I found it this morning in a restaurant. If you say it's yours, I hope you will." So what does this paragraph shows? There could be two situations. One is that this man is having some sympathy towards Soapy. That's why he thought not to make him guilty. Okay, and not to make him feel awkward. He thought to just give up his umbrella to this person. Or the second case could be maybe this person actually got the umbrella from some restaurant. He just has lifted that umbrella from the restaurant. And now he feels that the real owner of the umbrella has come. And that's why he is pleading guilty here. Okay, so both the situations could be there. Now what is Soapy's reaction? "It's mine," cried Soapy with anger in his voice. Now Soapy got really agitated, really angry that none of his plans are working. Everything is just becoming a flop. So he got very much annoyed and he started shouting that this is mine, just to provoke the other person. The umbrella man hurried away. In a hurry, the umbrella man just left the place. The cop helped a lady across the street. And the cop, who was just listening to them, just ignored Soapy and he just went to help a lady to cross the road. Soapy was again alone. Soapy walked east. Now he started walking east side. He threw the umbrella as far as he could throw it. So with anger, Soapy threw the umbrella with lot of force as far as he could throw. He talked to himself about cops and what he thought of them. So he started grumbling to himself, started talking to himself about the cops, what kind of cops these are, and what his opinion about the cops are. These are all useless and all such things. He started talking to himself because he wished to be arrested. They seemed to believe he was like a king who could do no wrong. So because why he was grumbling? Because he wanted to get arrested. But no, none of the cops were minding him. None of the cops were bothering what he was doing. So he was thinking that they all think that I'm a king or I'm a pious man, that I could do no wrong. At last, Soapy came to one of the quiet streets on the side of the city. He turned here and began to walk south toward Madison Square. So now Soapy has reached a quiet street. Then he turned towards south and started walking towards Madison Square. He was going home, although home was only a seat in a park. So he was going to his home. And what's his home? Just a bench, just a seat in the Madison Square Park. But at a very quiet corner, Soapy stopped. But as he was moving towards his home, at a very quiet corner, something stopped Soapy. Here was his old childhood home, and that was a place where Soapy's home was. Through one window, he could see a soft light shining. That had been his living room, where he had spent many happy, peaceful moments. Sweet music came to Sophie's ears and seemed to hold him there. So from that house, from that window, he was hearing one sweet, soft music. And Sophie was standing and observing and listening to that music, as if that music stopped Sophie there. The moon was above, peaceful and bright. That means it's already night. There were few people passing. He could hear birds high above him, and the music that came from the room held Sophie there, for he had known it well long ago. He could see people moving around. He could hear birds high above him. And the music, the sweet music that was coming from that room held Sophie there. Why it held Sophie there? Because that music was very much familiar to him. Okay, it was like his childhood memory. In his childhood, he has heard this music a lot. In those days, his life contained such things as mothers and flowers and high hopes and friends and clean thoughts and clean clothes. Now, when you see here such things as mothers, this indicates that Sophie was an orphan, and he was brought up in an orphanage that was run by nuns or run by sisters, and these children address these sisters as mother. That's why he's telling such things as mothers. Okay, and flowers and high hopes and lot of friends in the orphanage and clean thoughts and clean clothes. So this church song held him there. There was a sudden and wonderful change in his soul. He saw with sick fear how he had fallen. Now he is thinking that I had such a good childhood. What happened to me? What I did to myself? How I have fallen? He saw his worthless days, his wrong desires, his dead hopes, the lost power of his mind. So he was standing and analyzing himself that how wrong he has been. He thought of the worthless days, the days that he spent without any job, his wrong desires, his dead hopes, the lost power of his mind. So here you can see the author is relating this church song to the title Anthem. This music is the anthem that is referred here in the story, and this anthem or this music brought a transformation in Sophie. This anthem or this music brought a wonderful change in his soul, and he started analyzing himself. Now let's read further. And also in a moment his heart answered this change in his soul. So his heart also answered the change in his soul. He would fight to change his life. Now he is determined that he wants to fight. He doesn't want to live like this. No longer, he doesn't want to live like this forever. He wants a change in his life. He wants to fight to make a change in his life. He would pull himself up out of the mud. He is telling that I will put myself out of this dirty life. He would make a man of himself again. Now he will turn into a better person. Now he will become a gentleman. There was time. He was young enough. He would find his old purpose in life and follow it. Now he is thinking to himself that there is still time. I am not old. I am very young. And I want to find the purpose of my life, and I will follow it. That sweet music had changed him, and that is the anthem. Tomorrow he would find work. He has determined that tomorrow he will go and find some work for himself, and he will lead a dignified life. A man had once offered him job. He recalled that once one person offered him a job, which he refused to take. He would find that man tomorrow. He thought, I will find that man tomorrow and will get a job. He would be somebody in the world. Now he's telling that I will not live a life like nobody bothers about me. And now I will change myself and I will live a dignified life and I will be known in the world. He would. Sophie felt a hand on his arm. At that moment when he was thinking about the transformation in his life, that very moment he felt someone's hand, some grip on his hand. He looked quickly around into the broad face of a cope, and what he seeing? There is a cope standing and holding his hand. Now why this cope has held his hand? Now let's see. What are you doing hanging around here? Asked the cope. Nothing, said Sophie. When the cope asked that why are you standing here? The cope found something suspicious. So he asked, Sophie, what are you doing here? Why are you standing here? And Sophie said nothing. You think I believe that? Said the cope. The cope said that I don't believe you. You think I'm a fool? Full of his new strength, Sophie began to argue. But as Sophie had decided to change his life, now he no more wants to go to the Blackwell's island. That's why he's resisting the cope. He is trying to defend himself. And Sophie started to argue with the cope. And it is not wise to argue with the New York cope. And this was Sophie's wrong decision to argue with New York cope. They don't take any arguments from the common people. They immediately arrest you as soon as you start arguing with them, and they will present you in front of the judge. Come along, said the cope. 3 months prison on Blackwell's Island, said the judge to Sophie next morning. So the judge is giving his verdict that Sophie will be sent to Blackwell's Island for 3 months. And this is the saddest part of the story. Here is what the author O. Henry successfully manages to bring the twist. The moment Sophie decides to change his life for good, he gets arrested. O. Henry, The Cope and the Anthem. Now let's see what moral we learn from the story of O. Henry, the Cope and the Anthem. O. Henry's stories always have a moral that is often hidden beneath layers of irony. In this short story, the central character Sophie is a homeless man with a need for winter shelter and a clever way to get in it. Although all of us do wrong things in life, but there are times when we realize what we are doing is wrong. The important thing is to realize one's mistakes and make efforts to change it. Thank you. With this, the story is over.